Hi viewers, this is J. Swami, Assistant Professor of Zoology, Government Degree College for Women, Nalgonda. Today we are going to discuss the general characters and classification of subphylum Urochordata. As we know, these are the primitive chordate organisms, first evolved chordate organisms, so that they are usually called as the protochordates. Both urochordates and cephalochordates, both of them collectively called as the protochordates or primitive chordates. These are the first evolved chordate organisms. Then we will come to the Urochordata. The meaning of Urochordata is Uro means tail. Uro means tail. Chorda means dorsal notochord. Chorda means dorsal notochord. Eta means bearing. So the entire meaning is those animals which bear dorsal notochord in the tail region. While we are discussing the fate of the dorsal notochord in various animals, during that time we discussed that in urochordates the dorsal notochord is confined to tail region and it is only seen during the larval stages. So here the dorsal notochord in the case of urochordates, it is confined to the tail region only, not all over the body. That is the meaning of Urochordata. Uro means tail, chorda means dorsal notochord, eta means bearing animals. Those animals which bear dorsal notochord in their tail region. Then see the history of the urochordates. The solitary Ascidians, they were observed by the Aristotle and he named them as Tithium. Solitary Ascidians were observed by Aristotle and he named them as the Tithium. But afterwards, Linnaeus was the scientist. Based on various characteristic features, he grouped them under the mollusca. Linnaeus grouped the Ascidians under the phylum Mollusca of invertebrata. And Lamarck, Jean-Baptiste Jean de Lamarck, he separated the Ascidians from the phylum Mollusca and he grouped them under a new phylum which is named as Tunicata. Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck separated them from the Mollusca phylum and grouped the animals under a new phylum which is named as Tunicata, and followed by Kovalevsky established the relations in between the chordates and the urochordates. Chordates and the urochordates. This was the history of the urochordates. Let us discuss the general characters of the urochordates. See the habit and habitat of the urochordates. These all are marine forms. These all are marine forms. That means they only live in the oceans, sea waters. They are unable to live in the fresh water. That indicates that the primitive chordates, they are adapted to live in the marine environment only. Marine environment. In the ocean water, salt water they live. And they may be sessile or pelagic. They lead sessile mode of life or pelagic mode of life. Sessile means most of the urochordates, they have at the bottom of their body, they have peduncle like structure or stalk like structure, and with the help of the stalk or peduncle, they attach to a substratum and they lead the sessile mode of life. They are unable to move from one place to another place. They fix to the substratum with the help of the stalk and they lead their life. But some of the forms, they are pelagic. They live on the surface of the water. Floating mode of life. They float on the surface of the water due to the buoyancy. They lead the pelagic mode of life. All of them are marine. Some of them, they exhibit sessile mode of life, and others, they lead pelagic mode of life. And then some of the urochordates are solitary and some of them are colonial. Most of the urochordates, they are solitary. They lead independent life. Solitary organisms. And some of them, they come in contact with each other and form the colonies. The best known example for the colonial organism is the Botryllus. Like that, if you observe the Ascidians like the Ascidia and the Herdmania, pyrosoma, these all are the independent organisms, solitary forms. They can lead their life independently. But some of them, they combine together and form the colonies and then lead their life as the colony. Then urochordates are commonly called as tunicates. Urochordates are commonly called as tunicates because the body of the urochordates covered by a test, otherwise the exoskeleton, which is made up of tunicin. Tunicin looks like the cellulose. The formula is C6H10O5 N times. The entire exoskeleton, otherwise the test, that is being made up of tunicin, which looks like the cellulose. Due to the polymerization of the tunicin, they form the test around their body. So they have the armature or test around their body which is made up of tunicin, so that they are called as the tunicates. Urochordates commonly called as the tunicates because their body surrounded by a cellulose like material, that is tunicin, so that they are usually called as the tunicates. The Urochordata is also known as tunicata because of the test which is formed by the tunicin. Then they are also known as the sea squirts. What is the meaning of sea squirts is the body of the individuals, they have the siphons inhalant and exhalant siphons. So they take water from the ocean, from the surrounding ambient medium into the body, and they forcibly send them out like a fountain through the siphons. They sprinkle the water like the fountain through the exhalant siphons. So those animals which intake water and forcibly they send them out in the form of a fountain, so that they are called as the sea squirts. Generally they are called as tunicates because of the tunicin test, and they send out the water like the fountain, so that they are known as the sea squirts. And they exhibit great diversity in size, shape, and the color. Size. So there are animals with different sizes, very small to very large, and the shape may be different in all the organisms, and the coloration is also different. We can deviate them, differentiate them based upon their size, shape, and the color of the body. And most important feature is the pharynx of the individuals, urochordates, that is surrounded by a large atrium. Pharynx, so that is the part of the alimentary canal. Pharynx is surrounded by a large atrium, large chamber-like structure that surrounds the pharynx. And inside the atrium, that is lined by the epidermal epithelium. Pharynx is surrounded by a large atrium, and the atrium is lined by inside, that is lined by the epidermal epithelium. What is the specialty of the atrial chamber or atrium is all the important organs like the gill slits, which are responsible for the respiration, and anus, which is responsible for the sending out the excretory material, and the gonoducts, which are responsible for the transfer of the gametes. All the other organs like the gill slits, anus, and the gonoducts, they open into the atrium. Gill slits, anus, and the gonoducts, they open into the atrium. And finally, the atrium opens out through the atrial pore. Atrium opens out through the atrial pore. That indicates that as and when, if you assume the sessile forms, they are unable to move from one place to the another place, so that the respiration takes place through the gill slits, because the water which has been taken inside, that maybe enter into the atrium, so that the gill slits which are present in the atrium, they will be soaked with the water, and there will be a chance to exchange the gases in between the water and as well as the gill slits. Gill slits receive the oxygen and send out the carbon dioxide into the water. So that carbon dioxide mixed water that sent out through the atrial pore. Anus also. So all the excretory material that will be excreted into the atrium, that will be sent out through atrial pore outside. Then gonoducts. Gonoducts, they release their gametes into the atrium, and while the water pass out through the atrial pore, during that time they also carry the gametes along with the water, so that all the gill slits, anus, and the gonoducts, they are directly open to the atrium, and that atrium opens out through the atrial pore. Thereby, all the excreted material, gametes, and the carbon dioxide gases, they all enter outside through the atrial pore. Coming to the other characters, notochord is confined to the tail region and it is seen only in the larval forms or larval stages. As we discussed in the general characters of chordates, the Urochordates, they have the rod-like elastic notochord, dorsal notochord, that is only confined to the tail region, and it is seen only in the larval forms, because in most of the Urochordates the tail may not present in the adult. During the metamorphosis, they lose their tail along with the contents which are present in the tail, so that while the tail is getting degenerated, the notochord which is present in the tail region, that also get degenerated, so that it is only visible in the larval forms, not in the adult. So the name itself indicating Urochordata, that is Urochordates, they have the fundamental feature of the chordates, that is the notochord, only during the larval stages, not in the adult forms. And a special kind of circulation has been observed in the Urochordates, that is the reversible circulation. What is the reversible circulation? Is the heart of the Urochordates is tubular, like a pipe. Tubular heart is there. In the heart, the blood flows in a different direction. What is the reversible circulation? Is in the given period of time, let us assume 10 seconds. For 10 seconds, the blood flows from, let us assume this is the anterior region and this is the posterior region. For 10 seconds, otherwise, for the given period of time, the blood flows from anterior to posterior for given period of time. After 10 seconds, the same blood flows from posterior to anterior again. Blood flows from anterior to posterior in the given period of time, and the same period of time that flows from in the reverse direction from posterior to anterior. Moreover, the heart is tubular, pipe-like structure. Such a kind of circulation is not at all seen in any organism, in any animal, except the Urochordates. Urochordates, they have the tubular heart and they exhibit reversible circulation. What is the reversible circulation? Is for the given period of time, the blood flows from anterior to posterior and again from posterior to anterior for the given period of time. That is a reversible circulation. So Urochordates are the organism, only organisms which exhibit the reversible circulation. And coming to the specialty of the respiration, usually gill slits are the respiratory organs. Now the respiratory pigment is vanadium. Vanadium is the element with the atomic number 23. Vanadium is the respiratory pigment which is seen in the blood of Urochordates. And there are special kind of cells which are called as vanadocytes, which collect the vanadium from the ocean water. Vanadium is the respiratory pigment which carries oxygen from heart to various parts of the body. Then vanadidocytes are the cells which collect the vanadium from the ocean water. So these are the vanadidocytes, and the respiratory pigment is the vanadium. So if we have the hemoglobin like that, it also act like the respiratory pigment. It is a element with the atomic number 23, that is the vanadium. It acts like the respiratory pigment. What is the source of the vanadium? The source of the vanadium is as usually ocean. There are special kind of cells which are known as vanadidocytes. They receive or collect the vanadium from the ocean water. Then coming to the excretion. As we know, what is the excretion is removal of the nitrogenous wastages from the body of the animal. And here there are two organs which act like the excretory organs. One is a neural gland, another one is a nephrocytes. Neural gland, it is a part of the nervous system, but after the degeneration of the nervous system, it may be modified into neural gland. So this neural gland and the nephrocytes, both of them, they exhibit the excretion. They collect the nitrogen wastages and they send out these nitrogen wastages from the body. And if you come to the dorsal tubular nerve cord or nervous system, it is almost all. The nerve cord also seen in the highly developed manner only during the larval stages. After the metamorphosis, during the metamorphosis, the dorsal tubular nerve cord also get degenerated. Only some portion of the dorsal nerve cord is exist in the form of neural ganglion. Neural ganglion. In the adults, nervous system is in the form of a neural ganglion. So no dorsal nerve cord exists in the adults. So during the larval stage, we will find out the dorsal tubular nerve cord, but not in the adults. And coming to the reproduction, these are hermaphrodites. Hermaphrodites means they have both the gonads of male and the female. They have the both male and female gonads, so that they are known as hermaphrodites. They release their gametes into the water, so that is into the atrium cavity, and from the atrium they send out into the water, so that the fusion of male and female gametes takes place only in the oceanic water, that is outside the body of the individual. Outside the body of the individual, so that the fertilization which takes place outside the body of the individual is known as external fertilization. They are hermaphrodites and they exhibit external fertilization. And the mode of development is indirect development. As we know, if you find out any kind of larval stage during the process of development, then that is known as indirect development. In the development of the Urochordates, we will observe a larva with free swimming nature and with a tail, which is commonly known as tadpole larva. Tadpole larva is seen during the developmental stages of the Urochordates, so that it is known as indirect development. And the process of metamorphosis is known as the retrogressive metamorphosis. In general, metamorphosis denotes the larva with the undeveloped characters, with the minute characters, that is being developed into or metamorphosed into an adult with highly developed characters. The larva with the undeveloped characters being modified or metamorphosed into an adult with the highly developed features. That is the general metamorphosis. Whereas here we will observe another term, that is the retrogressive metamorphosis. Retrogressive metamorphosis. So that is, metamorphosis takes place. Meta means change. Morph means form. There will be a change in the form of the individual, but it is regressive or retrogressive. That is, in general, what happens? The larva with the undeveloped characters being metamorphosed into adult with the highly developed characters. Here also in the retrogressive metamorphosis, larva get modified into an adult. But here in the Urochordates, the larvae exhibit highly developed characters because due to the sessile mode of life, due to the primitive characters, the adults may not be identified as the chordates. That is the reason why some of the scientists they grouped them under the mollusca. But if you observe, if you make a keen observation at the larva, you will find out all the fundamental features of the chordates, like the dorsal notochord, which is seen in the tail region, and dorsal tubular nerve cord is also located in the tail region. As usually, due to the main respiratory organs, the gill slits they are present. Okay, and moreover, the post-anal tail or tail is also seen during the larval stages. Only due to the specific features of the larva, these urochordates are being observed and being grouped under the chordata phylum. That is, the larva contain highly developed chordate characters like dorsal notochord, dorsal tubular nerve cord, pharyngeal gill slits, and the tail region. By observing the larva only, scientists they grouped the urochordates under the phylum Chordata. Such a larva with highly developed chordate characters get modified into an adult without the tail, without the dorsal notochord, and without the dorsal tubular nerve cord. And moreover, the larva is a free swimming form with the help of the tail region, but the adult is sessile. When you compare, the free living form is highly developed when compared to the sessile form. So that the retrogressive metamorphosis denotes that the larvae with the highly developed characters get modified into an adult with the undeveloped characters. So this is the meaning of the retrogressive metamorphosis. The urochordates they exhibit the indirect development. They show a free swimming larva which is known as the tadpole, and they exhibit the special kind of metamorphosis which is called as a retrogressive metamorphosis. Retrogressive metamorphosis. So these all are the general characters of the urochordates. So we should remember the name of the common names of the urochordates, that is the tunicates and sea squirts, and the meaning of the urochordata and specialties of the urochordates. Let us see the classification of subphylum Urochordata. Although there are various organisms with various sizes, shapes, and colors, some of the organisms they show similarity in their structures and shapes, forms. They are grouped under various classes of the subphylum Urochordata. This is the classification of Urochordata, where the Urochordata get classified into three classes. Namely Class 1 Ascideacea, Class 2 Thaliacea, and Class 3 Larvacea. Subphylum Urochordata get classified into three classes, three groups, namely Ascideacea, Thaliacea, and Larvacea. Let us see one by one. Class Ascideacea. What are the special features of the Ascideacea and what are the organisms that have been included under the class Ascideacea? See the special characters of the Ascideacea. These are the sedentary forms. These are the sedentary forms. Sedentary means sessile forms. Most of the Ascidians, they are the sedentary forms. They are unable to move from one place to the another place. They fix to the substratum with the help of the bottom and the representative sucker-like papillae, and they are unable to move from one place to the another place. That is the meaning of sedentary mode of life. And coming to the second character, most of them, they are solitary, they live independent life, and some of them, they exhibit colonial forms. Most of them, they are independent, they are solitary forms, but some of them, like the Botryllus, they lead the colonial mode of life. Some of the organisms, they come in contact with each other and fuse together, make the colonies, and they lead colonial mode of life. But remaining other organisms, they lead solitary mode of life. And coming to the habitat, they live in the marine habitat. That is a common feature of the Urochordates. So they may be seen from the rocky shores to the marine depths. They live in the seashore region and they may also extended up to the very depths of the ocean. And most of the animals, Ascidians, they are seen in the shallow coastal waters. Most species of the Ascidians, they live in shallow coastal waters, and they may be distributed from equator region to the polar regions. So where the oceans which are present in the equator region to the polar region, in all those oceans, these Ascidians have been found. So that is the distribution of the Ascidians. And one more interesting thing is adults are stationary. Adults are stationary, but the larvae are freely swimming or freely moving. So just now we discussed that the larvae contain a free, flexibly moving tail so that they can move from one place to the another place. But during the process of the metamorphosis, prior to the process of the metamorphosis, the larvae that select suitable, favorable regions and they fix it to the rocks, otherwise any suitable substratum, and they undergo metamorphosis. Finally, that will be modified into adult. So during the process of the metamorphosis, it loses its tail so that it may become sedentary. So adults are unable to move. They lead stationary mode of life. They are unable to move from one place to the another place. But the larvae, due to the presence of the tail region, they are freely moving or freely swimming in the water. And the best examples for the Ascidians are Ascidia, Herdmania, and the Botryllus. Ascidia, Herdmania, and the Botryllus are the best examples of the class Ascideacea. Class Ascideacea. So let us see the examples. This is the Ascidia. So this is the bottom of the sea. Here there is a substratum, so that the bottom of the organism is fixed to the substratum, so that it can lead sessile mode of life or sedentary mode of life, and moreover it is a independent organism, solitary organism. So the color is looking like the thick pink in color. This is the Ascidia. The best example for the Ascideacea is the Ascidia. And this is the Herdmania, which is the type study of our basic students. Herdmania. So these are the siphons, otherwise the inhalant or exhalant siphons. This is also fixed to the bottom with the help of the various papillae. So during the larval stage, it also leads the free swimming mode of life, but after the metamorphosis, it is becoming a stationary organism, unable to move from one place to the another place. This is the Herdmania, and the one and only colonial form, which is most famous, which is found in the Europe region, Botryllus. So this is a large colony. So each and every star mark that represent a Botryllus organism. So there are many number of hundreds of organisms come and contact with each other and form a colony. So this is the best example for the colonial form, Botryllus. So we have seen Ascidia, Herdmania, and the Botryllus. Then come to the second class of the subphylum Urochordata, that is the Thaliacea. See the characters of the Thaliacea. So these are the free swimming tunicates. These are free swimming tunicates. Then some of them are solitary, they live independently, and some of them are colonial. And the specialty is, in the adult condition, in the adult stage, they are never provided with a caudal appendage. They never provide with a caudal appendage. That is a specialty of the Thalacians. And most beautiful thing is, the body is highly transparent. The body of the organisms is highly transparent, and the body covered by a test which is made up of tunicin, cellulose like material. It is a permanent structure. They have a permanent armature, otherwise a permanent exoskeleton in the form of a test, which is made up of tunicin. And the muscle fibers of the body, some of them, they are arranged in the form of complete rings, and in some of them in the form of incomplete or interrupted rings. These muscle fiber bands are present in the body. In some of them, they are complete ring-like structure, in some of them incomplete ring-like structures, and in some of them they are diffused all over the body. Diffused all over the body, so those which have complete rings, they are called as the cyclomyeria, and those which have the incomplete rings, they are called as hemicyclomyeria. So based upon the muscle fiber bands, they are called as the cyclomyeria and the hemicyclomyeria. And the mouth and the atrial pore or atriopore, they are located at opposite ends of the organism. At one side we will see the mouth, at the other opposite side we will observe the atriopore. And as we know, the pharynx surrounded by the atrial chamber. There are the small pore-like structures which are called as the stigmata. These stigmata, they connect the interior of the pharynx to the exterior of the environment, exterior of the body of the organism. So they connect both the exterior environment and the internal environment of the organism, that is to the pharynx. And one more interesting thing apart from the Thaliaceans is the alternation of generations. Alternation of generations is the fundamental feature of the Thaliaceans. So it is a remarkable event in the lifetime of the Thaliaceans. The best examples are the Doliolum and the Salpa and pyrosoma. These are the best examples of the Urochordates. See, this is the Doliolum. Doliolum is an organism which looks like the drum, beating drum, and it has circular muscles, so that is called as cyclomyeria. Circular muscle bands are present here and there, so that is known as the cyclomyeria. This is the Doliolum. And this is the pyrosoma. It is a pelagic organism freely swimming over the surface water of the oceans. The specialty of the pyrosoma is generally most of the organisms, they exhibit the bioluminescence. And apart from the bioluminescence, many of the invertebrates and some of the vertebrates, they exhibit the bioluminescence. Emitting the cold light from the body of the individuals is the bioluminescence. The some of the insects like Enopla, they exhibit the light from the body of the individual. In the same way, pyrosoma is a organism which exhibit the bioluminescence, and the strength of the bioluminescence, otherwise the power of the bioluminescence is high in the pyrosoma when compared to the other bioluminescent organism. What is a bioluminescence? Emitting the light from the body of the individual. There is a protein which is known as the luciferin. Luciferin is the protein which is commonly seen all the bioluminescent organism. It is get oxidized. And that emits the cold light. This is known as bioluminescence. For the oxidation of the luciferin, we require an enzyme which is known as luciferase. Luciferin get oxidized in the presence of luciferase enzyme and exhibit the cold light. So this is nothing but the bioluminescence. Bioluminescence, when you compare all the organisms which exhibit the bioluminescence, so they exhibit intensified light when compared to all other bioluminescent organisms. Highly intensified light get exhibited by the pyrosoma. That is the specialty of the pyrosoma. Then coming to the another organism, it is a Salpa. Salpa, the body contain the incomplete ring-like structure bands, myonim bands, so that is known as the hemicyclomyeria. So this is the Salpa. And coming to the class 3 of the subphylum Urochordata, that is Larvacea. Larvacea. Let us see the characteristic features of the Larvacea. So these Larvaceans are having the transparent body and they are free swimming tunicates. They easily swim in the water, ocean water. And here the tail gets supported by a permanent skeletal notochord. Permanent skeletal notochord that supports the tail. So the tail is permanent here. Then the structure is very small. The size of the animal is very small. They contain a trunk which is not more than 1 mm long, 1 millimeter long, and a tail, a permanent tail, which is not more than the 3 times of the length of the trunk. That is 3 mm, not more than 3 mm long tail. That is, the animals, they have the trunk and the tail region. Trunk may be of about 1 mm long and the tail may be not more than 3 mm. Not more than 3 mm. Then the body surrounded by the test, as we know, the test is represented by a large temporal envelope which is commonly called as the house. The house is the name of the test which surrounds the body of the Larvaceans, which always forms very rapidly and that is usually secreted from the surface of the endoderm and that will be frequently thrown off like the ecdysis process, and again new ones get formed, renewed. That is, the body is surrounded by the tunicin shell or tunicin test. The test which is present in the body of which surrounds the body of the larvaceans is commonly called as the house, and the house may be formed very rapidly by the secretion of the endoderm and shows the ecdysis process, molting like phenomena. Usually that will be thrown off from the individual and again new one being formed. And there are two stigmata which are responsible to connect the interior of the pharynx to the exterior, and there is no atrial cavity. That is a specialty of the larvaceans. Tail consists ganglionic nerve cord, because here when compared to the other urochordates, here in the Larvacea they have a permanent tail which is supported by the notochord, so that due to the presence of the tail region they also contain the ganglionic nerve cord. Ganglionic nerve cord. And the development is almost all direct. No larval form is seen. So the best example for the larvaceans is the Oikopleura. The best example for the larvaceans is the Oikopleura. So here, whenever you observe the characteristic features of Ascideacea and Thaliacea, here there are some different characters has been observed. So the special characters have been observed in the class Larvacea. So the best examples are Oikopleura. So this is the organism we are observing, we are watching at Oikopleura. This is the best example for the class Larvaceae. So in the under the microscope we will observe a small juvenile which is lengthens of about 0.2 mm. 0.2 mm. It is a small juvenile of the Larvacea, that is Oikopleura. So it is a trunk region, very small. This is the trunk region, and this is the tail region. The trunk region may not exceed of about 1 mm long, and the tail not more than 3 mm long. So that is 3 times than the trunk. So the all over organism itself is a 0.2 mm. This is a minute juvenile of the Oikopleura. In the today's class, we have learnt about the general characters of all the Urochordates and the classification of the Urochordates. Thank you one and all.